everyone, welcome back to Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. My name is Stacy. Today I have a different kind of a video for you. I'm trying a different style. You'll have to let me know how you like it. In this video there are 7 projects that are all bee themed, bee related, and they are all on this 2-tier tray that I am showing you at the moment. You'll have to let me know in the comment section below what you think of this kind of a video. I'm going to do a lot of fast forwarding and just doing a voiceover narration for a lot of it. So let me know if that's enough information for you, or if you prefer the old way of doing it where I just kind of talked through it as I did it and fast forwarded the repetitive parts. So let me know what you're thinking. Okay, the first project we have today is a beehive made from a flower pot and Dollar Tree nautical rope. There's also a mini beehive made from Dollar Tree jute and a section from an egg carton. You will need 1 mini flower pot and some rope from the Dollar Tree. The first thing I did was to cut the lip off the bottom of the pot so that I would have a smooth edge to glue my rope to. The next thing I did was I grabbed my glue gun and I started gluing the rope onto the pot. Make sure that you attach the rope very well in the first couple of runs around the pot so that it is secure, and then you can just glue about every third of the way around the pot. Continue up until you get to the top where I add a handle, and then I continue wrapping until I get the whole thing covered with jute. The next thing I do is cut an oval out of black cardstock to make the door to my beehive. Next I glue on that cardstock circle and I braid together some jute and use that to trim the doorway just to make it stand out a little better and to cover the unfinished edge of the cardstock. And here's the finished beehive. Isn't it cute? I also made a second beehive out of the same rope, but I separated the strands apart. When you buy the Dollar Tree nautical rope, it comes 3 strands twisted together, and that's what I used on the one on the hive that's on the left. But the one on the right, I separated the 3 strands out, so you're basically getting a really chunky jute, and I did it with that one. I used a lot less rope doing it with the strands separated, and now that they're repackaging the rope and the lengths are getting smaller, the one on the right is your more economical way, and I think that's actually my favorite way of doing it. I think it looks a little bit more realistic. The next project is the mini beehive made from a section of egg carton. And I cut out this section, and then it had a rough edge on the bottom, so I just cut out some scraps from the other parts of the carton and glued them around the bottom so I would have a smooth edge in order to be able to attach my jute twine. The first thing I do on this one is I'm going to start at the top, so I'm going to make the handle first. So I tied a little loop into the jute and I glued that down to the very top. And then I start wrapping my twine around the knot from that loop. This one will just have a tiny little handle at the top, and that's fitting because it's a tiny little hive. And then using just some thin jute twine, which you can get at the Dollar Tree, this particular twine is from Walmart, but I just wrapped in the same way as I did for the bigger one, around and around and around, attaching as I went, and kind of just smushing the twine together so that it would stick really well. So now I've got this little tiny hive. Now the tiny hive needs a tiny door, so I cut a little tiny circle out of black cardstock and glued it on, and then I trimmed it with just a single thickness of the jute twine around the door, and it turned out so cute. There's my little honey hive. The next project is a fairy garden truck and camper turned into a bee truck and camper. So I'm painting this little truck and camper with 3 coats of the yellow maize Waverly Craft chalk paint, and it took 4 coats in some spots because it was really hard to cover up that red. But you want a good solid coating so that you have a blank canvas to work with. While the chalk paint was drying on the truck, I set out to make a beehive to fit into the back of the truck. It needed to be really small, so I used a Dollar Tree foam egg ornament that I had left over from my Easter projects, and I wrapped that in brown and white baker's twine. And I did get that twine at the Dollar Tree as well a while back. And then I wrapped and wrapped and wrapped until I got up to the top, and then I just tied a little loop of the baker's twine for the handle. And then because it's so small, I decided to go ahead and paint on the little doorway. And I just used a dot of paint, and then I wrapped that dot with one strand of the baker's twine to make the doorway stand out. And then it's really tiny and fits in the truck. Here the plan was to show you how to build the sideboards for the truck, but I lost that footage somehow, so you'll have to tune into my Easter truck video to see how I built the sideboards for that. But I used the giant toothpick looking things that I got from a bag of wood that I purchased from Walmart. Next project up is some little mini terracotta pots that I painted, and these are from the Dollar Tree. So I'm using the terracotta pots from the Dollar Tree. They come in a 3-pack. I used some Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster, and on the first pot I just dry brushed all over the entire pot to give it a distressed look. On the second one, all I did to it was paint the band in a solid color strip of the plaster paint, and that was all I did to that one. And then I painted a little bit down inside just in case you needed an edge on there. The third one, I painted out the entire pot in the plaster colored paint because I wanted all 3 pots to have a different look. Again, all 3 of them are painted with Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. And then I went back after I painted this one, and I liked the way the solid rim looked on the plant pot. So I grabbed that dry brushed one that I did to distress at the beginning, and I went ahead and painted the rim solid on that, and I added a little more distressing because after it dried, there just wasn't enough on it. But I really wanted that solid band at the top. And I'm going to do some lettering on them later. The next project is this birdhouse, Beehive, that I made in the bee theme. The supplies that you'll need for this project are one of the little wooden birdhouse kits that you get from the Dollar Tree, some jute, some Mod Podge, and something to make a stand out of. Depending on what your theme is, that might determine what you want to use for a stand. I went ahead and Mod Podged some scrapbook paper that was bee themed onto each of the pieces of the birdhouse, and so now it's ready to be assembled. The paper that I used for this project was the watercolor garden. It was from DCBW, and I think I got it at Tuesday Morning. This is the cutout page from that pack, and I'm going to be using that on several projects in this bee themed showcase that I'm doing right now. One additional supply that I felt I needed was these 2 little rectangles of wood. They're really thin, like about 1/8 of an inch. They came from a bag of wood pieces that I got in the craft section at Walmart. What I used these for was to support the roof pieces, because the roof comes in 4 pieces that you have to glue into 2 sections. And they were a little bit warped, so I needed something to hold them together. For the base of my stand, I used these wooden coasters that I got at a thrift store. Alright, in order to make that perch, before I start gluing everything together, I want to make sure that I've got that perch hole punched through my paper. Okay, so now it's time to start assembling the house. And I fiddled with it a little bit. The instructions said to put the side piece to the inside of the front piece, but I found that the house felt more stable if I glued it to the outside edge, and it fits and works either way. I'm just going to assemble my house with hot glue because it's just going to be a decoration that's not going to be handled much. So I'm running a small bead of glue on the side, or on the edge of the side piece, and then I'm going to stick the back piece on, and then I'm going to glue this front piece on, and then I will repeat that. Alright, now with the main body of the house assembled, it's time to start working on the roof. I put the perch in at this point because it's easier to get in there and be able to put a little bit of glue around, and I'm also running a bead of glue along the seams just to give it a little more strength and to keep it good and sturdy. Okay, for the roof, I'm going to flip them over, line up the 2 pieces for each side, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue onto this rectangular piece. And while squeezing the roof pieces together, I'm going to push that piece down and make it as a brace on the back. The instructions on the birdhouse have you just glue those to the side of the birdhouse. And I did that with one, and it just started sagging in the middle. So I thought, okay, let's put that little piece of wood in there, and that will help support it. Alright, so all of the glue that I put in on the seams of the house, I put it on pretty thick, and it needed some time to sit and dry to be good and secure. So I didn't want to move on with the house. So I'm moving on with the stand, and I'm going to take this wooden flower cup. It's like a candle cup, and I'm going to wrap jute around it and make it into like a little mini honey hive. So what I did is I took Dollar Tree nautical rope, and it has 3 strands that are twisted together, and I separated those strands out so that I had 3 separate strands, and it basically gives you super chunky jute, and that's what I wrapped this little candle cup with. And then I wrapped it in the exact same way I wrapped the other beehives at the beginning of this video. So here's my little candle cup all wrapped in jute. The only thing left to do is to cut a little black circle to make the doorway, and I will outline that black circle in a single strand of thin jute just to highlight the doorway and to seal the edges of the paper. And here's what my little candle cup honey hive looks like, and that will become part of the stand for this house. Okay, finally to the roof. Make sure you check these pieces because one piece of the roof is going to be a tiny little bit bigger, and you want to make that the last piece that you put on. So the first piece will be flush with the peak of the roof, and then the second piece will overlap that first piece, just the tiniest little bit, so that you have a good solid edge. Okay, so I put glue along the edge of the house, and I'm lining up my roof piece, and it's staying together nicely thanks to that little rectangular piece of wood. And so I'm making sure that it's flush with the other side of the house, and I'm pushing it down, and then I am going in with my glue gun and reinforcing the seam with a line of glue. And then I'm going to repeat that with the other side, putting glue all the way around and sticking the other roof piece on. Notice that I put the glue all the way along the length of the roof piece, and now I'm laying that piece up on top and making sure that it comes flush with the top of that other piece. I hope that makes sense because it's kind of hard to describe. Now it's time to attach the bottom piece, and this is where you have a little bit of a decision to make. You can push all of the extra piece of the bottom up to the front, or you can center the house on it. It depends on how much perch area you want. If you want to put a little moss and maybe a little nest or an egg on it, then you want to push it forward. I think what I do here is I center it. I put glue all the way around on the bottom pieces. Everything's glued together and been reinforced, and then the bottom piece is like the lid that seals it all in. Once you put that bottom piece on, you can't really adjust anything else on the inside of the house because the only way in is that little tiny hole at the front. Now I need to assemble the stand. So I've got my bottom piece, which is that wooden coaster from the thrift store, and I've got some of those wooden stems that you can buy at the Dollar Tree. And I picked out a couple that are cut pretty level, and I want to have some little knobs and things on the end of them because I think that adds character to it. So I'm just kind of going through, selecting my pieces and making sure that one of them will fit up inside of my little honey hive candle cup. Once I've chosen my stem pieces, I'm checking it for height to see how tall I want it to be. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put another stem on top of the honey hive. So the first thing I do is I glue down the bottom section, and I'm using a combination of E6000 and hot glue for that. E6000 around the edge of the piece of wood, and then a glob of hot glue right in the middle. And that's going to help, the hot glue is going to hold it in place until the E6000 has time to cure and dry. Now I did let the bottom piece sit for about an hour just to get a little bit set before I went on to the stem that I was going to add to the top of the honey hive. And I'm just checking it to see how level it is. And once I find the piece that I like, I'm going to go ahead and glue the stem onto the top of the honey hive, and then I'm going to leave it sit overnight to dry before I attempt to attach the birdhouse to it. Okay, by the magic of YouTube, it is fast forward to the next day, and here is what my stand is looking like. I love the way that this looks. It kind of reminds me of something from Winnie the Pooh. Now that it's dry and it's sturdy, I can go ahead and attach my birdhouse to it. But before I do that, I decide that I want to trim up the seams with some jute just to cover some glue globs that oozed out of the house while it was curing and drying. And so I'm going to run a bead of hot glue around all of the seams and cover those up. Alright, here's a quick look at my birdhouse with all the seams trimmed out in jute. I think it just makes it a little bit more country, a little more farmhouse. Time to attach the house to the stand. I'm going to use the same technique I did for gluing the stand pieces together. E6000 around the edge, hot glue in the middle, center the house on there and hold it till the hot glue grabs, and then I just have to leave it alone so it can dry and the E6000 can have time to dry and cure. Okay, here's another option for you to make a base for the bottom of your birdhouse stand if you don't have a wooden coaster or something lying around that you can use. These are the tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree, and what I did is I glued three together side by side, and then I glued one on each end going the opposite direction, and I made two sections of that, and then I glued them together. This is what you get once the glue is dry, and I made one of these for another birdhouse that I made. I've been making all sorts of birdhouses. They're fun. And that's what I used for the base of that one. Okay, back to that watercolor garden paper pad and that cutout page. I am using that for lots of different projects. Down in the bottom of that cutout page is a little card that says "You're the bee's knees" and it has a couple little bees on it. So I'm going to end up using that one. And then I'm deciding, do I want this black and white or buffalo check paper as my background, or do I want this yellow buffalo check? It's kind of a little more plaid. It has some small lines in it too. And I ultimately decide on the yellow. And I have to, this is one of those tiny little 3-inch signs from the Dollar Tree, maybe 3.5 inch. And I pop that middle circle out and save the circle because that's what I'm going to Mod Podge the bee's knees card onto. Now that I've got the center circle popped out, I'm going to take Waverly's chalk paint in the color ink, and I'm going to paint all of the surfaces of the sign, inside and out, and the back. Now I've got everything cut out, and I'm just trimming that bee's knees sign to fit the circle. It doesn't quite fit it, so I'm going to end up painting the circle and then putting some baker's twine on it. Next, I Mod Podge onto that circle, and I glue down the little card that says "You're the bee's knees" on it, and I put the little extra bee on there that I cut out of the scrap that didn't quite fit on the circle, so that I'd have 2 bees instead of just 1. Still can't decide on my background paper color, so I'm going to try it, the little bee's knees sign on both colors and see which combo I like the best. The yellow paper wins out, so I do a dry fitting, a little trimming, and then I Mod Podge it in. So I've decided to do a little bit of decorating on the back of this box as well, because sometimes my 2-tier trays can be seen from all directions, so I wanted it to look nice on the back as well. So I decided to use the paper, the black and white paper that I already cut for the inside as my backing paper. So I hit it with some Mod Podge, then I'm going to put on the black and white buffalo check, and then the little saying that says "Let it be" on the back. Once I get the back finished, I go ahead and I coat the entire box with Mod Podge. That just protects the black chalk paint and helps it from getting scratched up and dull. Black chalk paint will do that if you're not careful. Now to address that little edge of black that's showing on the circle beside the bee's knees card, I just wrap some black and white baker's twine on there using a lot of glue and a little bit of foam tape to help hold that in place because it wants to slide off. Then I just tie it in a little knot and it's good to go. Finally, for this little sign, all I do is put a big old glob of hot glue on the back of that circle. It already has that mounting square on it, and I center it in. If you use a big enough glob of glue, you've got a minute to move it around and adjust it before the glue hardens too much to where it's stuck and permanent. Then I decide to add a little baker's twine to the bottom of the sign, so I wrap it around 4 or 5, maybe 6 times and tie it in a knot on the back under the "Let It Be" card, just to give it a little more dimension, some texture, and some interest. Then I take a little piece and I tie a bow around on the front section so that it looks like it's tied from the front, and you never know that it was actually tied on the back. Just polishes it up. And that is my finished "You're the Bee's Knees" sign for my two-tiered tray. And on the back it says, "Let it be." While I had my decoupage out, I went ahead and used those other pieces that with sayings on them that I was showing you on the cut apart page, because I thought they were just too cute to pass up. Here's the finished stick. This one says "Be Humble," and it's just propped up on one of my flower pots. And then this one I glued on going the other direction, and it says "Be Kind." I think that looks cute with a little sprig of greenery. Next up, we have this cute little honeybee colored jar. This is a jar from the Dollar Tree. The first thing I'm going to do is wash any fingerprints off with some nail polish remover. You can also use rubbing alcohol for this. Then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in the color Maze, and I'm going to start painting, trying to keep my brush strokes even. It's going to take about 4 coats to cover this jar and to get it to look nice. So take your time and let it dry between coats. Now I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ink, and I'm going to go around the edges of the jar on the bottom. And I'm also going to go in every other groove that's on this jar, just to give it some stripes and make it look a little bit more like a bumblebee. Then I switch to my Sharpie because the paint is just, my paintbrush is not doing what I want it to do. But the Sharpie seems to be working pretty good. This is going to end up being kind of rustic looking because, well, I'm not that great at staying in the lines. So I hit it with my Sharpie all the way around. And then I do go back to the paint for the top of the jar. Okay. Next, I take my jute twine after the paint has had plenty of time to dry. I wrap it around about 3 or 4 times, and then I tie a little bow in the front of the jar. Then I take some of the boxwood from Walmart and put a few sprigs in there with a couple of little sunflowers. Alright guys, there you have it, 7 projects. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know if you like this style with the voiceover and several projects. It's a little more difficult to do, and the video does end up being longer. So let me know what you're thinking about it and if it's a thumbs up or not. Let me know which project in this little series was your favorite. I just wanted to give a series video a try and see what you guys thought of it. So give me some comments in the section below. I know in a couple of my voiceovers that my background noise is a little bit loud, and I'm not quite sure why, other than I need a new microphone. So I will be working on that. But let me know what you think of all these projects. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, and go out there and craft your stash. Stay home, guys. Stay safe. This has been Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.